This week in the U.S. Virgin Islands, we're seeing this incredible story of resilience just unfold in real time. We're going to break down how the islands are dealing with some major infrastructure challenges, while at the very same time, their culture and local economy are just hitting new highs. It's a really fascinating look at that balance between struggle and strength.
This is a DGHradio.com news and information, United States Virgin Islands News Review.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the critical infrastructure, the stuff that keeps the islands running day to day. Then, we're going to explore the amazing local economy that's proving to be so tough. After that, we'll touch on the ongoing efforts for public safety. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see what it all means for the future of the USVI.
All right, let's start with the absolute foundation of daily life, infrastructure. This week, we saw two totally different stories play out. One was a sudden crisis, and the other a proactive solution. And, together they paint a really vivid picture of both the challenges and the progress happening right now.
So, St. Croix had a pretty major disruption over the weekend. The Richmond power plant failed, and that knocked out power to the entire island. The response, though, was a massive undertaking. Crews worked tirelessly, first getting power back to critical places like the hospital, and then they just systematically brought the rest of the island back online, feeder by feeder, until everything was back up and running by Monday afternoon.
Now, while St. Croix was deep in crisis mode, St. John was actually taking a totally different, proactive approach to its own infrastructure. The Department of Public Works is kicking off a major road repair project, and their message is crystal clear. Look, a little disruption now is going to lead to a much better, much safer drive for everybody in the long run.
And this isn't just some quick fix, not just filling a few potholes. We're talking about a complete overhaul of damaged roads, and that includes crucial drainage upgrades to stop future flooding. It's a huge investment, funded by both local and federal grants. And get this, the contract went to a local firm, so every single dollar spent is also a direct boost to the St. John economy.
So here's the amazing part. Even with these big infrastructure headaches, the local economy and culture are not just surviving, they are absolutely thriving. This is where that story of resilience really comes to life.
Just take the Taste of St. Croix event this past weekend. It was a massive success. More people, more vendors than ever before. It's already being called a major milestone for the island's hospitality industry, and it really signals a powerful comeback.
The community involvement was just incredible. Over 50 local chefs, restaurants, and caterers were there, all showcasing the amazing culinary talent on the island. It's just such a powerful example of the community's entrepreneurial spirit.
Commissioner Boshalte really summed it up perfectly. An event like this is so much more than just a celebration of food. It's a vital economic driver. It supports local businesses, and it cements the Virgin Islands' reputation as a top-tier travel destination.
Now let's look at another piece of this economic puzzle, this time over at the Henry E. Rolson Airport on St. Croix. A new shop lease might not sound like huge news, but it's a key part of what's called non-aeronautical revenue. That's a fancy term for all the money the airport makes from things that aren't airline fees. So think retail shops, parking, ads, and that revenue is absolutely essential for keeping the airport running and making improvements.
The Port Authority made a really smart strategic decision here. They awarded a 5-year lease to a locally owned business that's going to feature authentic Virgin Islands-made products. This is a total win-win. It boosts the airport's revenue, and it directly supports local entrepreneurs, all while giving travelers a real taste of the island's unique culture.
Of course, a thriving community also has to be a safe one. And that brings us to the ongoing efforts to ensure public safety, which is always a top priority for residents.
Over in Christiansted, a shooting incident over the weekend triggered a really rapid police response. Officers got to the scene and secured it, and as soon as they learned a victim had been taken to the hospital, the Criminal Investigation Bureau took charge of the case.
And here's the good news. The victim's injuries were not life-threatening, and he's now in stable condition. So with the victim safe, the police are now focused on the investigation, and they've asked the public for any information that might help.
This incident really highlights a critical challenge for the community. For police to solve these crimes, they need information. But that requires trust between law enforcement and residents. So the big question is, how can that trust be built and strengthened to make the community safer for everyone?
So what does this all tell us about the U.S. Virgin Islands right now?
Well, when we connect all these different stories, a really clear and compelling picture starts to emerge.
The core theme of the week is just so clear. For every single challenge, there's a response. An unreliable power grid is met with dedicated restoration crews working around the clock. Deteriorated roads are answered with new paving projects. Public safety incidents are met with formal investigations, and economic vulnerability is countered by a vibrant and incredibly supportive community.
And this is why this all matters. To really understand the U.S. Virgin Islands today, you have to see this balance. It's a community that is constantly navigating some very serious challenges, while at the very same time celebrating a culture and an economy that are just undeniably resilient and strong.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. In a place with such deep-rooted challenges, but also such a vibrant, thriving culture, what do you think is the real key to unlocking a more stable and prosperous future for the U.S. Virgin Islands?